This is called This Anime Exposed a $28 Billion Sweatshop. Let's check it out.
In 2008, a slice of life anime called Kaneki came out. 2 years later, a man who worked on it was found dead.
Oh,
and for a while, this incident was a mystery. The big question being whether he did it himself or whether it was staged. It would take the government 4 years to finish their investigation. That after he'd worked 600 hours with no paid overtime in a week where he couldn't even go home, the man had ended his life, working for one of the most famous anime studios in Japan, which got off completely scot-free.
What? How much coverage do you think this got, given how popular anime is?
The lines are like 5 hours.
Earthquake, we're all fucking
I assume a lot.
It was like it never happened.
And in my quest of...
I like how we just watched the one how like big corporations are like cheating creators, and then we watched this one, which is just so much worse.
Find out the answer to one simple question. I unearthed the dark truth that anime would rather you not know. That behind the cute girls running around on your screen is a war that has been raging since before World War II. Entangling in it some of the most famous Japanese people in history, from the seats of power in the Japanese government all the way across the ocean to the doorsteps of Walt Disney. A war that has consumed countless numbers of innocent lives and dreams as people fight to just be treated like human beings. Hijacked by companies exploiting the fallout of anime's god, dooming it all to slowly fall apart at the seams. But the worst part is, you've been staring at the truth for years. It's just been one click away. In January 2019, a new horror anime was released, featuring a group of orphans being raised to slaughter. The Promised Neverland quickly became the most popular of the season. Every man, woman, and child was talking about it. The story, the characters, the atmosphere, everything was phenomenal. So when The Promised Neverland Season 2 was announced in early 2021, anime fans expected nothing less than an epic sequel to the story that shook the winter of 2019. But that's not what they got.
I just finished watching episode 6 of Promised Neverland Season 2, and it is the most abominable, putrid pile of dog shit I've ever seen.
The second season of The Promised Neverland was bad. Like, really bad.
I've never seen this anime. You seen it before? First season? Okay. You love this anime? Well, it's about to get real dark.
And what happened to that second season quickly became one of the biggest mysteries of 2021. How did such a popular series suddenly turn into such a dumpster fire? Was the animation studio just inept? Was it higher up corporate pressure? Was the manga artist pulling the strings? Nobody knew, and virtually nothing was said about it. Overshadowed by the other two series Studio Cloverworks made in 2021, The Promised Neverland Season 2 was seemingly thrown out the window as if the entire series was a failure. As if the first season wasn't a mega popular success. As if the studio was in debt or something. As fans were finishing up Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan Season 3, Cloverworks would reveal something odd. After having produced not only The Promised Neverland, but also Darling in the Franxx and Bunny Girl Senpai in the same fiscal year, the studio had made no profit. In fact, they were 7 million yen in the hole. And they were lucky because as the anime industry reported that it grew to a market cap of 2 trillion yen, industry surveys reported that the back end of the anime industry was actually in a crisis.
Yeah, I don't understand how. I guess we'll jump into it, but I don't understand how that's possible.
40% of all studios in debt, the industry shrinking by 5%, anime numbers collapsing for 4 years straight, and what seemed like an endless stream of employee horror stories. It was so bad that some reports even predicted the industry's imminent collapse, something that anime had actually done to itself. In the 1960s, the manga and anime industry got into a civil war. Specifically, this man, godfather of manga Osamu Tezuka, thought Japan's biggest animation studio was a load of shit. And Toei thought Tezuka was a massive bitch. Feeling like he had no control over his story and the production process, Tezuka decided to build his own anime studio from the fortune he made and take the direction of anime into his own hands, eventually arriving at his crown jewel, an anime adaptation of his manga masterpiece, Astro Boy. Now with an anime on his hands, all you had to do was bid for a slot in the air, which unbeknownst to Tezuka meant that he had to outbid the one and only
Disney. Did you check with the government and see if they needed any money lately?
Dude, Disney's also a pile of shit, so like, like the biggest pile of shit.
Faced with the challenge of having to financially outbid Disney in order to air his anime to the public, Tezuka realized something important. He might not have been as rich as Disney, but he had bigger balls.
Oh, man, okay.
And so he decided to take the age-old financial advice of, if you can't buy it, then go into debt for it. A lot of debt for it. Oh, don't worry about how you're gonna pay it back. Luckily, since Astro Boy was already popular in Japan and Tezuka decided to push for the unheard of rate of an episode a week, Tezuka managed to turn his smart financial decision into billions of dollars of profit through the power of marketing and merchandise. Faced with that amount of money, other animation studios quickly conformed to this weekly schedule, using Tezuka's refined techniques to kind of cheat the animation process and make it easier to upload every week, ascending Tezuka to the god of anime, as well as manga. It's a spicy title. There's only one problem though. Astro Boy looks like this.
That night, at the Institute of Science,
modern anime looks like this. And that weekly upload schedule has not changed.
Yeah. And honestly, that's probably why I guarantee you most of these studios are looking into AI. I guarantee it. They're looking into AI. Because they already had the whole debacle about the translations, like English translators injecting their own bullshit into anime. And they were like, you know what? I don't care if the AI has issues and might fail. It's better than some rando fucking desk warrior injecting their perspective of the world onto my fucking story.
In addition, not every animation studio could just go into hilarious amounts of debt. And while TV stations and the government could initially make up that shortfall, by the time Neon Genesis Evangelion rolled around, anime was just getting way too expensive. And with Japan's economic miracle about to explode in the country's face, the decision was made to implement a relatively unknown funding strategy that had in it a slow, creeping death. That explains how animators can barely afford food while their creations go on to rake in billions of dollars of profit, and being nearly impossible to escape from. But the worst part is, you already know what it is. K-On! Is a slice of life anime involving a group of high school girls who make a band called the Sakurako K-On! It's a pretty cute show, but when I watched it for the first time, I found something really off. Besides the fact that Mio overrated, Ritsu best girl, in the opening of every episode, an inexplicable blurb of text would appear on screen without fail that made me question my sanity. Here, see if you can spot it. There. The show about the fictional Sakurako K-On! Was produced by the Sakurako K-On! And once I saw that, it was like the floodgates had opened. Nier Automata, Land of the Lustrous, Anohana, even The Promised Neverland. Nearly every single anime had this weird little text at the end, and then some just didn't include it. And with how anime...
I am not following. I mean, I guess I'll go into it, but I'm not following. So, like, is there a production studio in between that's, like, siphoning off the money? Like, what's happening?
Credits are structured, the most important people came at the end. So what was more important than the animation studio, the anime director, and even the...
Is it just VC funds? Is it like a VC fund? Like
original author?
Oh, yep.
Remember when I brought up Astro Boy and Chainsaw Man? Well, let me ask you something. What's the actual difference between these two anyways? More colors? More detail? More good stuff? I mean, okay, this picture probably took longer to draw, but aren't animation studios made up of artists? Just throw a few on there and it would take like an hour, right? It can't be that, oh my god. That's where the problem is. Not only is there like a million frames in a single anime episode, there's 2D art, 3D art, special effects, voice actors, music, people who plan, stage, direct, scriptwrite, edit, manage the whole operation. Whether it's so employees know what's going on or keeping character models consistent so a character doesn't...
Dude, consistency in models too. If they're not 3D and they like someone's redrawing it, that's a night. It's a fucking nightmare.
Suddenly become a different race the next time you see them. The anime production process is ginormous. So with all these people running around and busting their asses to make your favorite anime, let me ask you a question. Who's gonna pay all of it?
7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered.
Making anime is like entering the stock market.
Freaked out, waiting to see how low we'll go.
When you buy a company's stock, you're technically buying an ownership in the company, which means that you technically have power over what the company does. But come on, what are you gonna do with your 0.1 shares of Apple? And we all know due diligence is a myth. Now, okay, forget about all that bullshit. What's the real reason you invest in the stock market? Money. And that, my friends, is what Neon Genesis Evangelion did to anime. It turned the entire thing into the stock market, which means that, yeah.
I mean, is he trying to say, like, it's just a dice roll on which thing does well and what doesn't? You know, because you never know, like, what will take off and what won't. I mean, you have a general idea with manga, like, what people found popular, but, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, we'll see.
A few girls and a guy with mental health issues have made it so that you could own a portion of your favorite anime and even make money off of it if it does well. Isn't that great? I lied. You can't. Because the only people allowed to enter the anime market are people who can pull a Tezuka and spin an anime into $1 billion of profit, which nowadays means you have to be a corporation. And with each anime being infinitely more complicated than the last, and production values skyrocketing with little to stop them, more and more bigger and bigger corporations are being called on to invest in the anime that you watch. Which means all these companies are fighting over how they want the anime to go, making the entire process an expensive bureaucratic nightmare. Wait, hold up a second.
Okay.
If production-
I mean, so what they just described is the game industry. What they literally just described was the game industry. Whether it be investment from a city or a state or a country, the VC investments, the internal investments, like anytime like Ubisoft, for example, like wants to make a game, they're not fronting the whole bill. So are we just kind of like talking about late stage capitalism in terms of like how you fund a project? Is that what this is?
Values are going up, then why are 40% of all anime studios in debt? Shouldn't the production committee raise enough money to cover the wages and the production? Well, let me introduce you to one man.
Justice once.
PewDiePie. You remember that time Felix was waging a sub battle against T-Series? Well, number-wise, he lost. Spoiler alert. But does anyone actually care? It wasn't like after the dust settled, everyone thought he was a massive loser and unsubscribed.
This, incidentally, is how Japanese companies work. Replace a few labels on the graph, and suddenly you have Japanese inter-corporate culture, or something like that.
Since production committees are made up of companies coming from various industries, if two companies come from the same industry, say body pillows, there will inevitably be one company that outsells the other, aka a winner and a loser. Actually, it should be the other way around. And Japanese companies really don't like being the loser. So much to the point that there will only be one company per industry on the production committee, severely limiting the amount of money that can go into anime production, because companies have budgets. And okay, you know what, let's just get someone in the industry to explain it instead.
So they want to invest $200,000, but they actually want 10% of the rights. Yeah, so yeah, they're effectively VC firms that are taking a massive chunk of the profits. Okay, because they fronted it, they want their money back plus profit.
1000万円しか出てきない。でも権利は絶対に 10% 欲しい。となると2000円が 10%
Okay, Japanese companies suck, but what about foreign ones? Surely some big international company has looked at this and realized it might make them some money, right?
Well, no, not really, because anime is a stock, and in stocks, money is control.
So to prevent some random-ass company from essentially buying out their anime, the production committee will take that foreign investment meant for one anime and instead of put it into 100, screwing literally every party over just to maintain their majority control.
Oh my God.
And what can the people who draw the anime do about this?
Nothing. Because most of the time, they're not even on the committee. And even if they are, they don't have enough ownership to force the committee to raise more money. So they're put into a very pleasant position of having to make anime with pretty much no money. And they do make an anime because they signed a contract that says they have to. And once that anemically funded anime goes out, the production committee turns around and says, oh wow, you made this anime with no money? Clearly you're capable, so why don't we do it again? This is what the Sakurako Keionbu actually is. The production committee. Who doesn't value anime for your petty little reasons like laughs, tears, or childhood memories, but as a means to one single end, to make as much money as possible. But hold on.
Yeah, so it's pretty much what we said. Okay, yeah.
A minute, let's not jump to conclusions here. Production committees are kind of scummy, but it's not like they're all evil mustache trolling villains.
No, they are. It's a VC firm. What do you mean? Yes, it is.
And unfortunately, the service they provide is kind of necessary. I mean, how many studios can you think of that can cough up the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars that it costs to just produce one episode of anime, let alone the millions it takes to produce an entire season? And don't forget, these anime that you watch, they're all a product of survivorship bias. These actually survived the process. Imagine the 90% of anime that get all this funding just to never be released, which would put studios into multiple millions of dollars of debt. These anime studios need money to survive, and the production committee does that for them, even if it's really shittily. They raise the money and allocate it to revenue stream. The anime, the merch, the t-shirts, the body pillows. It's just ironic that out of all of these streams of income, the least profitable part of it is the anime itself.
Hello everybody, my name is...
How do you think YouTubers make money? Discounting all the merch, sponsorships, and all the other stuff. The main way any YouTuber makes money off YouTube itself is ads. Sorry about that. Advertisers want to make a lot of money by selling a lot of...
No, I mean, it is very true. Sponsorships, depending on the content creator, will be pretty high up there. But yeah, ads on content, because it's not It could be, depending on the content, type of content you make, it could be evergreen content or it could be situational content. But ads make your money.
Stuff to a lot of people, which means
except on Twitch. Literally the opposite, but it's fine.
they'll pay more for ads to either reach a lot of people or the really rich people or both, which is anime's issue. Because the time anime is aired on TV in Japan is not really conducive to advertisers, with the waking hours being taken up by shows that are aimed at an audience that usually doesn't have any money, and the shows that are actually aimed at people who have money are aired at a time when most of them are asleep, which means advertisers won't pay that much unless it's an uber popular anime like Demon Slayer. So if anime doesn't make that much money, then what does?
So I'm waiting in line to get the figures. They've gone to get the figures. This man in front of me literally just spent about $6 grand on Kirito.
$10,000.
$10,000.
$10,000.
$10,000. Chat, you don't have to out yourself, but you know, like in general, like I can't imagine spending that kind of money on something like that. Personally, that's just me, right? But I think these people figure it is their hobby. It is what they like and what they enjoy. So, you know, that's what they spend their hard-earned money on. 10K on what? On like statues and merchandise. Like think of that friend that has the IKEA glass cases, right? And then has a shit ton of fucking statues. You have a friend? Yeah. I think everybody probably has one of those friends or knows somebody that has one of those friends that spends that kind of money. But then I also wonder like what they do, because like that's a lot of money to just blow away. But you know what? It makes them happy. So, you know, spend your money the way that you want to spend it. Yeah, but some people don't give a shit about investing. Some people just kind of just want to spend the money to enjoy the room that they're in. My housemate is that kind of friend, but on Monster Hunter statues, oh shit.
$1,000. Just like how Tezuka put his bets on the power of otaku, so do modern production committees, who invest the majority of their money not into making the anime, but getting the word out about the anime and making all the merch that anime fans gobble up, which through a strange turn of events has resulted in this. Do you notice something wrong? Why is this DVD so expensive? The price of anime DVDs have always looked kind of ridiculous. How expensive was it? You want me to pay almost $50 for a part of a season of an anime that I can just watch?
Wait, seriously? That was $50 for part one. What? Who the fuck even buys DVDs anymore? Or Blu-rays? Does anyone buy that shit? I feel like you would just pay Crunchyroll or pay, you know, Hulu or whoever the fuck has it and just watch it. I can't remember the last time I actually bought a DVD.
Something wrong? Why is this DVD so expensive? The price of anime DVDs have always looked kind of ridiculous to me. You want me to pay almost $50 for a part of a season of an anime that I can just watch online for free? I mean, through verified online streaming sites? And beyond that, people don't buy DVDs anymore. Right?
Sweet, because I have a lot. I have a few hundred.
Well, as it turns out, people still do. And in fact, anime DVDs are like this MacBook Pro stand, a luxury item, overpriced because the profit made from the people buying is enough to outweigh all the lost profit from the people who don't. In fact, in the good old days, anime DVDs used to make so much.
This is effectively the graph for every single game out there, chat. This is actually how Valorant operates right here. This is how League of Legends operates. This is how almost every single massive game that is a free-to-play model operates. That a very select few outweigh the profit loss. It's crazy because it's in my eyes an unsustainable model. It works, and a lot of this comes from China. Just for games, I'm talking about games. I don't know about for anime, right? But for games, a massive chunk comes from China, and that's why even people are like, why do I have like these skins that I don't care about, they don't speak to me, and they're fucking anime or, you know, cutesy as fuck. It's like, well, because China wants it. That's why. Your country doesn't spend enough money for the gaming companies to give a shit about you when China makes up 80% of their profits. So of course they're going to cater to the one that's spending more money. So I mean, this all makes sense. Nothing I'm seeing here really surprises me at all. I mean, Valorant's a great example of that. Like, no one in their right mind that's not a streamer or somebody that's a whale spends $100 on a weapon. Just, they don't. That's not something like the normal consumer does.
Profit that has propped up entire studios before. Spoiler alert, those good old days are over. Because nowadays, most anime is watched through streaming services like Crunchyroll and Netflix, so the committee requires pay a few $1,000s minimum per anime episode in an attempt to recoup production costs. An attempt that's usually completely hopeless. Because did I mention that anime is getting so expensive that entire production committees are going into debt? Which lends itself to the
So again, I can relate this to games, right? This is the same exact problem that games are having too, is that games, while making insane profits, are actually in debt. It is this, literally, this is late stage capitalism at this point. This is late stage capitalism coming to fruition. Also inflation. You know, we have to consider like all the different factors of what's happening here, because anime, games, it's so effing expensive to make. Yeah, Rockstar is one of the few exceptions, I would say. One of the very few exceptions. You either have to make a game or an anime with like a small amount of people, which frankly is almost impossible with the scheduling that the people do, or you have to just really cater so hard to your whales that your profits are fucking astronomical. And there's only, you know, a handful out there that can even do that or succeed to that level.
Fortunate realization that, yeah, your life is probably worth less than Orimo or El Manga Sensei is worth to the production committee. Because just like the money raised for anime came through them first, the money profited from anime goes through the committee first as well. Because they are the ones that technically own the anime. Because anime is a stock, and only the owners of that stock get to reap the profit of it. Besides, the creators involved in the project already got paid up front. Not our problem if they went over budget. Which means even if an anime is a big hit, sometimes the anime studio doesn't get a single penny. Knowing all this would explain why, even though the anime production industry has been collapsing inwards for a few years, anime and the—
Oh, wow. Okay, so what's happening is like they're going in debt. They're over budget, but the VC, we're just going to call it, they're not production companies, they're VC firms. The VC firms still want their pound of flesh, and they're going to take their pound of flesh before the studio looks at any profits. So everyone's going to take their piece before the studio ever sees a dime. Yeah, it makes sense. Because, dear Lord, I guarantee you some of these studios probably have like lifetime profits. There's no certain like cutoff point of like, okay, cool. Once you've recouped your profits plus 20%, you are cut off from any future profits, right?
The anime distribution industry have reached all-time highs because they're either paid on their own terms or through being on the production committee, not starved of money and also getting the profits last, which makes anime studios mass outsourcing work to lower wage countries like China or the Philippines seem a lot more reasonable. Well, it would be more reasonable if it made everyone's life easier, but it doesn't. Because now with workers spread out all over the world, it becomes increasingly more difficult to coordinate this ginormous border-transcending system to match the week-on-week deadlines that someone decided the anime industry should move at. Because at the end of the day, give a studio all the money they want, but it's never gonna matter if the anime just never comes out. The final season of Attack on Titan is kind of a joke. Delays on top of delays have turned the finale of Isayama's story.
So I guess I understand what they're trying to say here, but like, again, this kind of, everyone had to kind of figure this out when COVID happened, right? Like when COVID happened, you had to figure out how to do a remote workforce. And again, these guys are trying to find the cheapest labor possible while also keeping style guidelines and character consistency and all these 15 million things they're trying to do. But they're effectively having a remote workforce, trying to keep the same level of quality as they have with an in-house, in-person workforce. And it cost more money and more time. In a lot of ways.
Into perhaps the only real-life example of an infinite fractal. And for a series where the final season was handed off from the incumbent WIT Studios to Mappa solely because WIT was having some behind-the-scenes chaos, it's just, how? No, like, I'm serious, how? How do anime studios who outsource work in these massive amounts have these kinds of production issues? Especially when the employees are working so many hours that is being compared to literal slavery. Well, let me ask you a question. If you were a freelance animator working on some no-name anime, would you keep working at these amazing wage rates? What about like twice over? Thrice over? How about 10 times over? No, I'm being completely serious. Not only is VA and sound work done before the animation is completed, meaning studios have to rush out a rough draft for the VAs before then going back and then remaking everything for real, if you look closer at the production system chart that was somehow...
That part, though, I kind of get, because if they need to get a specific voice actor, they're only available... You're right to work with other people's schedules, too. Like a voice actor might be booked for like 6 months and they have an availability for like a week in between. And if you don't want to, you know, if you want that person, well, then guess what? You're going to be accommodating to that person. You know, it all runs into like a waterfall, right? And the animators are at the bottom of that waterfall getting fucked.
legibly translated from a 240p picture. You realize that the vast majority of the blocks here are literally just checking if things are done right and then redoing them over and over again, which, even though it works, pisses off literally everyone involved in making an anime. Whether it's the higher-ups, the entry-level workers, the production committee, or even the audience, forced to watch as the system hemorrhages time away as it's stuck looping the same track over and over and over again, creating an uncontrollable crisis that forces more and more employees to work longer and longer hours to make up for all the time wasted away, until inevitably someone, somewhere, reaches their breaking point.
Okay.
In 2019, a Madhouse employee sued the company after working nearly 400 hours of unpaid overtime in 1 month, doing the very important job of coordinating this ginormous mess. After having to drive around all night and day in a company car delivering materials to studio employees, the consequences of this broken system finally caused him to collapse on the street as he returned home at 7 a.m. But come on, is it really that surprising? I mean, the most obvious consequence of having such a huge production system is that there are so many points of failure. One delay anywhere, whether it's because the director overslept, the animator got an injury, or some outsourced person is late on delivery, one delay cascades down the entire system, causing
yeah, it's a waterfall. It's a waterfall system, yeah.
Everything behind it to get even further behind. The worst part is, the anime industry kind of brought this one on themselves too, with nearly every studio.
So this is something where there isn't really a great way to solve this other than going to AI in a lot of ways, right? Either you have to find a better way, to produce content faster, or you have to learn how to delay and accept the consequences, like the googly eyes. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's a waterfall system. There's Scrum. There's all these different types of like production pipelines, but they all have single points of failure. And with a machine this fucking large, there's gonna be points of failure. Either one artist, went off the rails and drew in a different style, or drew too detailed and then had to fucking redo it. There's just constantly that type of shit. So I don't know. I don't know if there's like a nice way to fix that, other than more machine learning to solve some of these things, which are then going to get rid of a lot of jobs.
Being in Tokyo and pay rates being not so great, many employees are forced to work on multiple jobs.
Wait, they don't pay you even remotely minimum wage? They overwork you to the point where people are vomiting at work and having to go to the hospital for medicine. So this is honestly part of a bigger problem, though, of like the government not enforcing labor laws properly. Because I guarantee you, people have reported this, and then companies were just like, the government was just like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, we'll look into it soon.
Multiple projects, sometimes.
Because again, it's the government's job to protect its people. It is not a corporation's job to protect you. While good corporations do kind of look after your well-being, that's not their major priority. Their major priority is to make money.
In multiple companies. This set of circumstances means that every single time an anime upload deadline rolls around, that there's an ungodly crunch hour where employees are trying to make up for so much lost time that they can't eat or sleep or even go home. Because it's not like episodes are worked on one by one, they're worked on in batches of 3 or 4, which means if a delay happens, it's not just merely one episode off schedule, it's a third of the season. With all this pressure and chaos coming down on employees who are most of the time just blameless victims, some people will stay up nights to make those deadlines, while others, understandably, are done with this bullshit and decide to just disappear in the middle of the production process, making everything worse. And
notice flying away? Wait, so there's just people that just say fuck it and quit and just they're called flying away? Holy shit.
Almost all of them will wish that this system was different. That they, the government, or something will come in and fix this abomination of a system that exploits their passions and dreams to basically
it should be the government. Yeah, hands down. Should be the government.
Voluntarily enslave them. But at the end of the day, all of that is merely just a pipe dream, because the struggle to make anime a good place to work has been fought for decades upon decades by some of the most venerable names in Japanese history, and near nothing has changed. Because while our story may have started with The Promised Neverland, the true story stretches far into the past, almost 100 years back to modern anime's birth, when one war ended and another began. When America occupied Japan at the end of the Second World War, they restructured everything about the country. And that included a concept that most Japanese had never heard of before: collective bargaining. And I mean, it's not too hard to see why labor unions were kind of foreign to the Japanese. In a country where harmony and the respect to hierarchy was the norm for like
I feel like, I mean, this might be a weird take or a hot take. I feel like the respect for hierarchy has led to more fuck-ups than benefits, to be honest. Like, the idea that you don't question your higher-up and your higher-up is always right when they are infallible also as a person just blows my fucking mind. That, like, to this day, that is part of a lot of, not just Japan, there's a lot of, you know, countries that have this type of like idea where they were like, oh, you know what? I cannot question my boss. You know, like it's going to be A, bad for me, but B, because even though I know he's wrong, I can't say it publicly because then I will have backlash, you know? So you know what? We just do what he does and we march off the fucking bridge and you know, that's it. It's a crazy concept to me.
Lot of years, a ragtag group of subordinate employees getting together and demanding something from their boss was something people just would not do. Inevitably, though, the concept began to see adoption, and in 1961, anime's first labor union was formed, the Toei Animation Labor Union. Remember Toei? And to be fair to the union, they actually did quite a lot. Founded by people involved in the production of Lupin III, and eventually coming to involve a very impassioned chief secretary by the name of Hayao Miyazaki, the union fought tooth and nail, winning concession after concession after concession, but they were on borrowed time. Toei had already started hiring out domestic freelancers in place of permanent employees, making unionization more difficult. 2 years later, Tezuka propped up this weekly upload norm, and then anime started to get really expensive, to the point where, by the time the 70s rolled around, Toei, along with some other anime studios, were
So this is where it gets really hard, right? Because you have collective bargaining for full-time employees, but when you're a freelance, you don't really have that much power, and they'll just replace you the next day, literally. So I don't know. It's just an unfortunate situation to be in, and frankly, this is why the government needs to come in.
Hundreds of millions of yen in debt, and Toei decided to conveniently solve the problem by just nuking half of its workforce. As you'd expect, people were pissed. And while the union would fight a 2-year court battle that would recapture 18 of 170 layoffs, 150 of those people, whether laid off or not, permanently left, including 2 friends who went on to establish a studio called Ghibli. After this, the situation only got worse. With anime expenses getting higher and higher, a studio called Sunrise would pioneer the concept of international outsourcing when it produced Mobile Suit Gundam. And as more and more of the industry turned into independent contractors now scattered all across the world, union organization became more and more untenable. And as production committees and the horrible working conditions of the modern anime industry began to solidify, the first generation of animators decided to try one more time to save what they loved so dearly, aimed at appealing the one actor that had more power than the companies did: the government.
Did the government do anything?
And to be clear, JNICA, a union founded by old people like Toyo Ashida and Satoshi Kon, was initially just aiming for guaranteeing retirement benefits, nothing more. But as the years rolled on and the working conditions of the anime industry were leaked to the Japanese public, the union gathered more and more members that weren't as old, and eventually became the spearhead of the anime unionization effort, winning a number of things it set out to do, including getting the support of the government of Japan. Unfortunately, that government didn't stay in power for long, and JNICA's proposals were cancelled, being cited as a waste of taxpayers' money. And while JNICA would continue its efforts valiantly, it had reached its peak.
I guarantee you that guy, the fucking government that abolished that, guarantee you had investment in one of those VC firms that was making profit. Hands down. A government doesn't come in and be like, hey, you know what? The rights and the health benefits of a whole group of people that is a staple of Japan doesn't really matter if there's not profit involved that they are specifically profiting off of.
Fighting in an unsupportive government doomed any future efforts. The union's last stand would come with a project that translates to anime's future. Proposed to the Department of Cultural Affairs, the entire project's premise was that if you paid people more people will want to come and work. Come on, guys. Really? But for one reason or another.
Yeah. Hey, if you have a living wage, maybe people will want to do it.
Another, Anime Mirai didn't prove to be successful enough to continue, and the entire program was given to the Japanese Animation Association, a group of 38 of the biggest animation companies in Japan, who coincidentally decided to switch the premise of the program. The anime industry now reaching 90 years old, and Janika's original founder now dead, most of the old guard took their leave. With nothing to show but blood and defeat in a war that lasted nearly a century, the men and women that had built and fought for anime, their love, their life.
This is like so much more depressing than the other one we watched about how DC and Marvel are scumbags. But this just shows you like just how little power creators have when it comes to their creations, and just how much VC firms and people in that have so much power.
Their legacy.
今の人類の夢っていうのはみんな呪われてますよ、どっかで。
Finally gave up.
あのね、映画の本当に素晴らしいのかどうかわからないじゃない。
全部私だけじゃない。あーやこれ好き。
That's so sad. You cry when you heard this speech?
呪われた夢なんです。
It's a cursed dream.
本当にきちんと考えたら映画が好きだってのはただのそういう趣味でしょうっていう。金を稼ぎたいとかそういうのは全部論外。有名になりたいってのも論外。そんなクソくらいでそういうことじゃない。かつてそういう映画が作られたことがあったかもしれないけど、今も映画の価値があるわけではない。多くはくだらないんです、僕らのこの世界は。
Wow.
難しい。
This one's way heavier than I thought it was going to be. My God.
I'm gonna be honest with you, this next part of the video is kind of dangerous. Dangerous because, well, the anime we know and love is gone. Because it's not just some girls running around on a screen anymore. It's a $28 billion system that controls hundreds of thousands of real lives and whose influence has reached hundreds of millions more. So when we talk about fixing it, we're talking about fighting politics, multi-billion-dollar companies, and centuries-old traditions, which, I mean, at the end of the day, that just sounds like we're gonna need a lot more people. Luckily for us, it's not like this hasn't happened before. 4 years before Tezuka would make his debut, his role model Walt Disney was experiencing a similar fallout, as a giant portion of his workforce went on strike for, quote, unfair and disorganized pay practices, after the man himself told them that they should essentially shut the fuck up and go focus on making good work instead. Which kind of begs the question, how did Japan go so wrong? I mean, the unions caught up pretty quickly to...
Yeah, but at the same time, I really wouldn't like point to Disney and be like, man, they got it right. Disney has been massively gutting their fucking workforce, and then on top of that, then they rehire them later for cheaper. Like they're also the massive scum of the earth. So, but I guess if you look at historically, yes, collective bargaining and striking worked against Disney more so than it did in Japan, and I think that's because of cultural differences. But we're now just seeing the same shit happening again, where we're having just insane amount of unemployment and also allocation of those jobs going to cheaper countries because it is unattainable to make a profit in the US with inflation and current salaries. And again, that's because half these fucking companies are in California, you know, and they're like, oh man, we can't make a profit. Oh, fuck. It's like, dude, just move the whole fucking studio to like the middle of the bumfuck nowhere, you know, of the United States. Because California, I forgot what it is. Like, what is California's GDP? Yeah, okay, so California GDP, 3.9 trillion for 2023. 6% increase. And that's including everything, because all the tech companies are here. All the fucking film companies are here. Every major company is almost in California, to be honest. So yeah, it's just like a massive uphill battle. And Disney's just a pile of shit. And everyone's just looking to cut costs. And that's why AI is so fucking scary, by the way. That is why AI is so scary, that it's going to take your work, regurgitate it, and fucking do your job possibly better in a couple years from now. Like, you're going to start seeing so many people be like, my job was replaced by AI, and I don't know what to do. And again, that's going to be back on the government to fix that. That's not on Disney. That is definitely not on Disney. Because what Disney's going to do, and what almost every single creative house is doing right now, is learning how to train AI based off their own IPs to have an AI that can make, say, Mickey Mouse, or an AI that makes, Cyberpunk 2077. They're trying to do that because it's their own custom IP and their own custom models. I don't get it either. Like, why not build a company like in rural Tennessee? Rent is cheap. I think the hard part, frankly, is that it's been really hard to get talent to want to move there. But now with remote work, like remote, jobs, but a lot of these companies don't want to have remote. So many of these companies, I mean, Activision's a great example of that. But Blizzard was like, hey, everybody can work remote. It's great. Riot did the same bullshit, but then a bunch of people from Riot rioted, literally, and told them to fuck off. But Blizzard tried to pull everybody back in, and people moved to those random podunk states. And I call them podunk because, A, their rent is like a fucking 1/8 of what it is in California. So you're living like a fucking god over there, but you're making a California salary. And a lot of these companies are like, why am I paying you this much? I shouldn't be paying you this much when you're living there. And then you get into the argument of pay versus the position versus pay versus location, and it gets really fucking messy. And all these corporations didn't want to deal with it, so they tried to pull everyone back. But let's see what he has to say about Disney. I mean, he's probably going to talk about the collective power that these unions had because, A, it's a cultural difference by far, and, they had some power. I mean, we just had a strike, last year? 2 years ago? When, all of film pretty much went to a standstill. But in consequence, that killed a ton of VFX firms because they rely on film. And when all of film is shut down, they didn't have any work and they didn't have enough fucking money to keep afloat. People that are like supportive of those industries that were on strike got fucked and they're gone forever. Capitalism, why use AI machines to help people work less? When we can get the AI to make the art so people have more time to work? No, it'll be when we have the AI to do the job and we don't need that person, or we need a skeleton crew to upkeep the AI art and fix any issues. Like the illustration industry right now, that's what's happening in illustration right now. So many firms in Japan and China are now using Stable Diffusion to do their illustrations, and then an illustrator paints over that to fix the AI's mistakes. You're not actually making art anymore. You're painting over what a machine makes, and that's kind of sadly the future of art.
Disney after what he did, but Miyazaki couldn't? I mean, Miyazaki and his 98 other friends? Surely they could have fought on for a few more years and avoided this entire shit show, and history would forever know the name of the Toei Animation Labor Union.
Skynet activated.
If you take a look at all the anime released nowadays and trace them back to what studio made them, you'll realize that, there's not a lot of Toei here. So what exactly would the Toei Union do for anyone who works outside of Toei? Yeah, nothing. Which is exactly why, even though on paper they accomplished a lot, in reality the Toei Union didn't really do much at all. Because they worked to better the conditions at Toei, not anime. And aside from Danica, there was never...
Newspapers are starting to get into AI too. It can write articles, and both are scary, sometimes hilariously bad. Oh yeah. I mean, think about social media. Think about, I've seen, in general, what we call a journalist now is fucking laughable. Most of them are just activists, just kind of guising themselves as a journalist, to be honest. I honestly don't mind. And I think it's one of those things where AI is going to start replacing jobs that are quote unquote luxury jobs. But that's the crazy part, right? We hoped that AI would replace the core jobs so we could have more time to do other things that excite us. But the opposite's happening. AI is taking a lot of the luxury jobs and destroying those, and there's nothing left other than like the core jobs. Like guaranteed, producers are going to be fucking gone eventually because AI is going to read every single bit of data and information and read all your emails and all your Gantt charts and everything to figure out where the redundancies are and suggest problems to solve. Voice actors, they're already having, like, voice actors are already fighting to not have their voices cloned from 20 seconds of fucking footage, and then it perfectly spits out a cloned copy.
An anime union. And given that everyone's outsourcing everyone now, it's kind of not possible to make one. Which makes anime the only instance I know of where the companies are better at organizing themselves than the workers. But at the end of the day, unions, politics, power, it all precipitates the actual problem. Money. God, the show is fucking weird. Because
No, it shows the problem that the government doesn't give a shit about its people and could have solved this issue a long time ago, but didn't. And the same problem is happening in multiple countries now. I mean, it's been happening forever, but it's coming to like kind of a boiling point now.
Regardless of how many other things people want to try and solve first, from how inefficient making anime is to the looming aging crisis it will soon face, it all stems from the fact that no matter which way you put it, no one's gonna work 7-day, 100-hour work weeks for months on end, getting paid anywhere from less than $3 an hour to $5 a fucking day. Because it's just not right. And if you speak in business better than morals, it's not operationally sustainable. And unless people are content with letting Japanese anime, with all of its history, its people, its products, and its influences burn straight into the ground and become another part of history where we wonder what could have been, nothing's going to change. Which means that, well, the fate of anime is really up to the people that watch it, us, to decide whether or not we're okay with the way history is going.
Okay, so I have a really bleak look on this, chat. I have like a really bleak look on this. The consumer doesn't care about the working conditions. They only care about the final product. A very small amount of consumers actually care, but they are not enough to make functional change. Like, no one cares that Ubisoft fired, 10% of its staff, or Microsoft got rid of like 15,000 people that now can't fucking, they can't sustain their current living situations and now are like on unemployment. Like, there's so much shit like that they don't care about. They just care about the end product. So he's probably going to say, hey, anime watchers, watch anime that's sustainable, blah, 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 blah. The average user does not care.
Not knowing that behind every opening we skip, every filler episode we see, and every canceled season we lament, the people who made what changed so many of our lives continue to fight, to share their dreams with us, to share their stories with us, to share their anime with us. And I think it's about time we give something back.
What are we giving back? Like, what do you mean?
This is the first time I fucking use this thing for anything outside. Okay, I messed up the final one, so it's fine. Still got some time. It's cold. It's cold.
How does this help? Like, not to be a naysayer, but how does this help? Like, he's just killing ad time.
Honestly, everything is so fucked up. There's so many problems with anime that I honestly just feel it'd be best if it went and died.
Makes you feel good?
もうね、今日聞いたらこれ1回でバッチリわかるという説明でございます。
Yeah, and so this is like, here's the reality, right? I'm gonna pause this because he's just, this is like a feel good ending right now, and to be honest, it's pointless. Like, it's actually pointless. The only way this fixes itself is if you, like, individually elect people that actually have your best interests at heart, and are young enough or smart enough to see the future incoming shitstorm that has been creeping on us for the past 30, 40 years, that's happening worldwide. So, and if you don't, then yeah, like it's just gonna be a dystopian nightmare. Like when you like, I'll talk about the U.S. because that's where we're from. But when you have congressmen and women that don't even understand how the fucking internet works or how social media works or really just in general, then yeah, you're gonna have laws that are made that don't make any fucking sense. But yeah, like the only way this gets solved is if we empower people in the government that actually have the forethought to see what's happening and actively trying to fix it instead of keeping the status quo. Like that is the reality. And if that does not happen, then there's just going to be mass unemployment because of AI. That's the one that like everyone's like, oh, and we're gonna make AI regulations and we're gonna tell it to do this. I'm like, yeah, but what happens with a company that doesn't do that? It is so wildly successful that they fucking dominate the market because they ignored all your legislation and rules, and they were in a different country, and boom, now you have like, I guess the best example of this is The Expanse, where there was like 90% unemployment. And it's like the most grimmest fucking look about what will happen in the US. But that is honestly, my opinion, where it will continue to go unless government actually starts stepping in. Because damn, it is going to be bad. We shouldn't use solar because we will deplete the sun. Some senator from Alabama. Oh my God. Is that an actual, like, please tell me that's not a real thing. Like, I believe that someone could say that. It's Alabama. God damn. Anyway, let's keep watching the feel good thingy here. But yeah, I don't really have faith that any of this is really going to be adding anything to it. It's just kind of like a feel good at the end.
経済対策として今の不景気というものに対応する。もしもし。もしもし。こんばんは。こんばんは。
You want the change in US, take away college football and football, right?
それで友人から借りた背広の上下を着て、それで裸足の足にビーチサンダル。それが高畑板。
But yeah, I'm just gonna stop it there. We'll link the video chat, but it's a good video. Talks about just like in general corporate greed and what's currently happening in multitude of industries right now, and how it's just not sustainable. So I think he made good points, but I think this ending part that's like honestly like 4 or 5 minutes long here is just fluff, right? It's just, ow! It's just fluff, just to make you feel good. But he made some good points. Hopefully we made some good counterpoints. I don't think that we have like the best. Ow! Why? Why the green cocks? Why? Fuck! I don't think that I have like the best outlook on the future, right? But I think that in general, something does need to change. And if it doesn't, well, then we're in that dystopian nightmare. We're all in it together, Chad. But anyway, that's it for this one. I will see you in the next video.